Facebook. So as you know, most of us would probably know that Oculus is owned by Facebook, of the many things that Facebook owns. And generally Facebook, historically, I should say, Facebook has always run things where just let people do what they want. Instagram is Instagram. It's not Facebook Instagram, but they're starting to progressively change that. And now they're really pushing hard. So with Oculus, eventually, and it's like 2023, so it's a long, long time away, but they are going to eventually mandate that you have a Facebook account to use Oculus, and they're going to merge the Oculus, I guess the store, or like at least the user identification with your Facebook account. And, you know, we've been chatting about VR and the whole VR space a lot. And just for context for people who listen not from Australia, it's actually really hard to get other VR devices in Australia for a reasonable price. Feels like we're a bit like Brazil, where it's like ridiculous. So the one that I would definitely want if I was wanting to get into this space would be the Valve Index, but you cannot get that in Australia. Like, you barely get it in America, but you definitely can't get it in Australia. So the Oculus was probably the most realistic for me versus the PSVR, which just feels like, you know, maybe if there's PSVR 2 and it's better, maybe that would be interesting. But the Oculus was, you know, okay, this is kind of interesting. My mate has one. And now with this news about this whole Facebook thing, there is zero chance that I'll be getting an Oculus now. Like, for me, this is just like, nah, no way. Like, does this put you off it, or you just don't care in general?
Oh, it definitely puts me off it. Not that I was, you know,
Thinking
lining up to
about
get an
yeah.
Oculus in general. I'm looking at, you know, VR as an option. I'd really like to try Boneworks, as well as, you know, obviously Half-Life Alyx, Beat Saber, and
Yeah.
some stuff like that.
Yeah.
But, you know, I've definitely... Oculus is also very, I think, quite confusing in the way that it is approached it with all the different types of Oculus. Some of them obviously standalone, some of them requiring, you know, PCs. Which, you know, if you're serious about VR gaming, you're not going to get the standalone. But the standalone apparently was quite good for certain experiences and things like that. But I'm not a Facebook user. I can't stand the platform myself, and I think it sucks. But the thing with this is, Facebook bought Oculus, 6 years ago or something at this point?
Oh, yeah, long, long time ago.
You know, they've given people a lot of time for this. So I can understand them wanting to actually kind of bring people into the same ecosystem,
But why?
from a number of standpoint. Well, I don't know if it's a technical thing. Their reason is obviously, we'll give people, make it easy to find and play with friends and stuff, which is just a load of marketing crap.
It's
But
BS, man.
I think there's probably legacy Oculus systems they want to get rid of. That's my thought of it. They just want to bring it into, you know, maybe a single sign-on style setup. So it does suck though. Anyone that's current, you know, Oculus owner and hates Facebook, and obviously anyone that hates Facebook and doesn't own one yet, you know, it's going to affect them. But it's going to be interesting because ever since, you know, the whole thing with Palmer Luckey, and him getting, I guess, outed from the head of Oculus. I think they're when I say their stock, not their actual stock, but like their stock in the mind of gamers and consumers has dropped considerably since then. So will be interesting to see if people even care about it, or are they just an afterthought at this point?
Yeah, and you know, you got to be really careful where you're positioned in the market. If you're just kind of middle of the road, you know, not really blowing anyone away, not really the cheapest option or a reasonable price option, I do think you put yourself massively at risk. So PSVR is by far, even further than the Virtual Boy, by far the most popular VR platform that's ever existed.
More than the Virtual Boy? Really?
Yeah. It's actually, I think I know the numbers off the top of my head. I think it's about 5 million units from memory, and I think it's maybe 500,000 units for the Virtual Boy. So there you go. It's 10 times more popular right there. But and I'm amazed it's not more than that, to be honest. But you know, I think people just wanting to get into VR, like on a base level, PSVR, and then when PSVR 2, which almost seems certainty to happen because they've almost referred to it, when that comes along, and if that is like a big step up, basically, playing almost like a 1080p almost versions of the games on much more powerful hardware, better refresh rates. I just don't get where Oculus stands then, because to your point, it's like, it's the standalone versus the PC version. Because if you want to have the top end, you wouldn't go Oculus, you'd definitely go Valve Index. And when they get the production sorted, that's where you'd go. And if you want a more like streamlined version, a more, reasonable price, you probably would go PSVR, or most people would go PSVR. So, yeah, I just don't get it. And, all this stuff about, oh, they need to do it for tech reasons or whatever, it's just total BS. Facebook doesn't really have a big line into the gaming market, like the whole streaming market. They've tried to do it multiple times with Facebook Gaming and really kind of have failed so far. And, they care about eyeballs, and eyeballs are going to streaming, and it's growing rapidly. It's one of the biggest segments in that demo they really care about. So I think they want a foothold in it, and they're forcing people to go across to it, starting from October for new owners. And like I said, this has now just put a line through Oculus for me. Like, I have zero interest in anything that Oculus does from this point on now. Because there's no way I'll get something that forces me to have a Facebook account just to play a game. Like, it's just crazy to me. So yeah, no, it's going to be interesting, and Zuckerberg's, mission to run the world. So we'll see how that goes.